Into the unknown, into the unknown. Okay, I am not a singer. However, I have seen Frozen 2 many times. I have a little girl, and if you've seen Frozen 2, you know that song where Elsa sings about venturing into the unknown. That's what this video is about. I have ventured into the unknown so many times in the last 5 years that it is getting ridiculous at this point. Like, all I do is venture into the unknown. But I'm going to give you a little story time about how I ventured into the unknown and how it always fucking pays off. So 5 years ago, I was 20 years into a long marriage. I felt very secure in that marriage. It was not something that was terrible. It was not toxic. I had 4 kids with this man. We lived in a great house. We had finally made it financially. His business was doing crazy good. We had slaved and toiled, and he'd gone to school for years to get to the point where he could do so well in his job. And I was just bored. And not only that, I had this inkling suspicion that I wasn't supposed to be in that marriage anymore. And I had no proof. I had no reason. There was no cheating. There was none of that involved. I just felt like it wasn't right anymore. And then I read Untamed by Glennon, which if you have not read Untamed by Glennon, go to the bookstore now and go buy yourself a copy. One of the most transformative books on the planet. But anyway, it's about liberating yourself as a woman. I will tag it down below. So I read Glennon Untamed, and did that voice come on ever strong after reading that book. Yes, I'm doing Frozen references because that movie is so perfect. But that little voice of like, there's more for you, there is a greater plan for you, started to develop and materialize in my mind even more. And I could not shake it. I tried to grow with my husband. We were very close at the time, and I told him about how I was feeling. And he tried to support me, bless his heart. He is a great man. He's single too, by the way. So any single women out here that want a really nice, sweet, good-looking, handsome attorney who's a great man, hit me up. Anyways, so I was just like, we need to reassess this. I wasn't ready to make any big changes. I was also in a religion. I was Mormon my whole life. I grew up Mormon. I had raised my 2 older kids in Mormonism. I had been Mormon for 40 plus years, and all of my family members back to like, the 1800 homesteading pioneers that trekked across the plains were Mormon in my family lineage. So for me to walk away from a religion that had quite literally defined my family line for centuries of time was a huge ask. However, I was growing increasingly unhappy, disgruntled, but a disgruntled former employee, disenfranchised with the church, and I just could not abide it anymore. I was just like, I can't stay in this church that's so homophobic. I can't stay in this church that's so patriarchal. I can't stay in this church that's so wealthy and doesn't use its money for good causes. It uses its money to buy real estate holdings and to bolster the very few white men at the top. I can't be in this religion anymore. And walking away from that religion, which quite literally defined my entire life down to what I ate and the underwear that I wore, was absolutely terrifying. But again, I just knew that there was something more. So I had these 2 things, my marriage and my religion, worked like barking at me that they were not right anymore. And it got to the point, I kid you not, I could not sleep in my bed knowing that I was in my marriage. I couldn't sleep anymore knowing that I was in my religion, because both of those things, to stay in them, I was self-betraying. And it just got to the point where the voice in me got so loud, of the inner voice, the authentic voice of just like, you need to get out of this. This is no longer serving you. And so I left both of those things within a 2-year time period. It was grueling. Anybody who's been through a divorce and has to sit down and tell your kids their mom and dad are no longer going to be together knows how absolutely heart-wrenching it is. It is a huge price to pay, but I had to pay it, and I knew I had to pay it. So here I was for 4 years venturing into the unknown. I also had to go get a job after being a longtime stay-at-home mom that had side gigs, but like really didn't work for herself or like pay her own way at all. Really, I relied on my husband a ton. I had to go out into the career force and work and learn a whole new job. That was walking into the unknown. I now could drink alcohol. I was in my 40s and like I had never really had alcohol. I had never really had coffee. I hadn't really ever like gone out and had that whole party experience that people have in their 20s. I never had that. I was in my middle age and had never had that before. And so that was going into the unknown, and navigating life as a single parent, a divorcee, was going into the unknown. And it was just 4 solid years, almost 5, of just completely not knowing what I was doing, feeling a sense of like total unsafety and emotional fragility of just like, what even is my life? Am I doing the right thing? But I will say, even though my entire version of God had changed, my entire marital structure, everything that ever brought me safety was gone, my financial stability was gone, I always came back to myself. I would journal all the time. I would meditate, which I started doing when I first started feeling like I needed to make changes in my life. And I would always go back to that. And what that represents is going back to yourself, going back to all the versions of yourself, the past versions, having to heal those past versions of yourself, and linking with your future self that is telling you what is next and what the next step should be that you should take. Relying on that future self to know, where should I go? Which direction should this next step be into the dark abyss of the unknown? I was also in a really bad, toxic, cheating, betrayal type of relationship in the last year. And that taught me that I had a lot of self-healing to do. And I had a lot of younger versions of myself, past versions of myself that needed time and attention and healing. And I gave that to myself. So it's always just putting one foot in front of the other until you can get to a place of safety. And I am a person who really values safety. I value emotional safety. I value stability in my life. And I went for 4 years without a lot of it. The only real stability that I had was within myself. It was what my heart was telling me. It was what those versions of myself were pushing me to do, and the changes and steps I needed to make going forward. It was listening to them and going into the unknown. And I will say now that in doing that, my life has leveled up so exponentially. I'm in a wonderful relationship with a man I consider my soulmate. I feel like eons of time have gone by, decades in this lifetime where we didn't have each other and where we were separated, and now we're finally back together. He loves me and sees me in a way that nobody ever has. I have never felt so safe, so secure, so cared for. That relationship itself is proof to me that when we walk into the unknown and we leave behind what is comfortable, but what is not necessarily for us, we are rewarded by the universe for our bravery and our courage, because this relationship has never made me feel so safe and secure. As far as my career goes and making money, I will say that that has also yielded amazing results from going into the unknown. Behind a relationship where I was pretty much cared for and all my needs were met, and going out and now working for myself has made me realize that I can create art from this passionate core place of authenticity and power and divine feminine, and also make money. So even though I don't really know like where my career is going to take me, I'm kind of still in the unknown in that situation. I am making money creating art already. So I know I can go in that direction. What a blessing to go from just working for the man and making money to put food on the table to now creating art and being able to live off of those creations. I'm telling you, when you step into the unknown, what yields back to you is the most magnificent, personalized, synchronistic results. I also have amazing friends around me that resonate with my highest, truest, most authentic self. And I have done so much self-healing from going into the unknown and being in poor relationships that have shown me parts of myself that needed healing, that needed tending to, that were operating on autopilot for years. And I was able to tend to those. I have never felt more full or actualized in my life. Step into the unknown. Listen to those future parts of yourself. Tend to those small, younger, past parts of yourself that need healing. And start making decisions even though you don't know what's going to happen down the road. And it will always pay off to a life of your most magnificent choosing.